Kupina kuphi emakhaya amadolobheni asecomplex lakhona sawubona ke bukele sakumule futhi elihlelo lakho ilungelo lakho it's your right lelihlelo ke lelikupha ngetindzaba tabathengi lethisematheni njengenjalo ke mbukeli nawe ungaba ingcenye loluhlelo ngokushayela lucingo ungasibhalela futhi na ku Facebook na ku Twitter waphinde usithumele futhi ne-email noma ke SMS asingena endzabeni ethu namhla. You know, it's not uncommon to find landlords and tenants locked in an ugly dispute over the return of a deposit at the end of a lease. Rental housing tribunals are inundated with cases where landlords stand accused of finding any reason to withhold a tenant's deposit. Now, our producers Yilungelo Lakho and Snag Ratebe caught up with a Johannesburg consumer, Tani Nchiza, who's still fighting to recover her deposit almost 6 months after vacating the premises. Let's take a look.
What happened? Just take us through, Tiny.
Ngafuna indawo, ngayithola indawo. Ngathi mangena kuyona indawo bangitshela ngendaba yokuthi fanele ngikhiphe i-deposit up front.
Zangalibazise wayikhupha ngokona ngoko i-deposit ye-4,800 yeRandi. Uthi le mali wayikhupha phansi komqathango uthi ukuba kubekho umonakalo ngelixa esaqeshile indleko zalamonakalo ziyakutsalwa kuyo. Kwafika ixesha lokuba ahambe uthi wayishiya lo ndawo kwimeko ayifumana ikuyo. Kodwa umqeshisi wavela etshona nemali yedeposit.
Mase ngibafonela ngithi hayi i-deposit yami bathi okay hayi i-deposit yakho sokufakela yona month end. Hayi ngakhululeka ke nami ngithi okay imali ngizoyithola. Yaphela inyanga. Hayibo imali ayingeni. Ngifone ngithi hayibo imali yami angiyitholanga. Deposit kwenzakalani bathi mina no kunenkinga kwi-finance yethu but we'll make sure ukuthi imali uyayithola end of this week.
Emva kwenyanga ezintathu kwavela isityholo esithi wophula ifestile. Iyo loo nto engakwazi ukufumana imali yedeposit. Wazikhaba ngawo umane ezo zityholo esithi nokuba bekunjalo ingaba ikhona ifestile enokuxabisa imali engange-4,800 yeRandi.
Did you maybe try to take pictures of the place which you took indawo ngoba ngithole iso noma ngihamba ngizobuyela kulesithombe yithi ngishiye ikanje? Like did you go through that process or vele wangena ngoba desperate waje ukuthi let me be comfortable and then what happened exactly the procedure nje
mangena azange ngize ngithathe ngicabanga ukuthatha ithombe ngoba ekhona ukuthi mangena bayangibhekisa nabo ukuthi uyabo istofu siyasebenza ini yasebenza yabo lokuthi bazokucheck isigize yasebenza amanzi yabo yonke into bangicheckisa nabo futhi nabo ngingena nabo enginikeza ikhini amazange ngize ngicabanga ukuthi ngithathe ithombe mhlambe ngishoot because vele ayikho into eyi wrong esikhathi ngingena yonke into yayi right.
Kulapho waphazama khona kuba ngoku akanabo ubungqina ukuphikisa izityholo zobonakalo abekwa zona. Kude kube ngoku akayifumana imali yakhe okanye inxalenye yayo kwaye akazi nokuba uncedwa ngalofumana phina.
What did you do after that? Did you just leave them like that? Vele wathi okay no it's fine ngoba ihlale nemali yami ayikho into engizoyenza.
Azange ngenze lutho. Ngagcina nje ngihleli kanje. Kodwa khona kuyikona ukuthi nje phela ngeke ukhohlwe ngemali yakho. But nje akukho la engahamba khona ngawonqonqoza mhlawumbe ngacela khona usizo.
Since last year December.
Since last year December till now but usizo ngiyalidinga ngingajabula kakhulu mangase ngilithola usizo.
Tani Nchiza akayedwanga ungomnye wabantu abaninzi bangazange beva ngeziko libizwa i-Rental Housing Tribunal. Eliziko lifana nenkundla elambla impixwano ephakathi komuntu oqeshe indawo kunye nomnini wendawo. Likho kuwo wonke amaphondo yaye inkonzo zalo zifumaneka simahla. Kwimeko enje ingaba uTani angancedakala njani?
Hayi asibonge kuVuyisile ke naHlengiwe Ratebe ngikusihlanganisela ke lo mbuyo. Ukhuluma ke abantu ke ngendzaba ethu namhla asesimukela advocate Brenda Madumisa. She is the chairperson of the Gauteng Rental Housing Tribunal. Siphinde sibe na Mark Milner. He is the director for the Commercial and Litigation Department at Allen Levy Attorneys. And last but not least, we also have Michelle Dickens. She's the managing director for the Tenant Profile Network, commonly known as TPN. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us and welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to start with you. Why on earth do we have to pay a rental deposit?
Well, typically a rental deposit is paid for security over damages that might accrue to the property. In the event that there's outstanding electricity at the end of the rental agreement term, in case there's damage to the property, that can be used once the tenant has vacated the property. A property incoming inspection is done at the beginning, the outgoing inspection at the end, and then any damages would be offset against the deposit.
Okay. Now, Mark, I'm sure, well, I've been translating to you what the former tenant has been going through. Like almost 6 months after she vacated the premises, she still hasn't received her deposit. She paid a deposit of 4,800 rand, but then she was told that it's withheld because of a broken window. On what grounds can a deposit be withheld?
Look, theoretically, just to go back, the biggest issue is that a deposit shouldn't be held for any longer than 7 days. That's officially the statutory requirement by when a landlord has to pay back. Beyond that, the purposes that a deposit can be withheld is, like Michelle pointed out, if there's damage to the property, if there's anything that's still outstanding for the rental period, generally it would be something like electricity and water. And theoretically, if there's still something outstanding with regards to rental, however, that's not the ideal. The pure purpose why a deposit is held is protection is a security for the landlord over damage to the property. Yeah. That's the real reason. So if there's no damage to the property, then it should have been refunded. And if the only damage that exists on the property is a broken window, then less the amount to fix that broken window, that amount should have been refunded within 7 days. Right. Including interest. Something that's actually not spoken about often is that a landlord actually has a duty to invest that amount of the deposits in an interest-bearing account. So if there is nothing that is still...
But is it a statutory requirement that the landlord has to pay the interest?
Yeah, in terms of the Rental Housing Act. The interest as well as the deposit has to be refunded to the tenant within 7 days if there's no damage to the property.
Most of the most of these lease agreements that have been going through, there isn't a clause that talks about the interest. Even if that's the case, is the tenant still entitled to that interest?
Yeah, it doesn't matter whether the lease agreement is silent. The law requires that you refund me my deposit plus interest and over the period of my lease.
Okay, so does it mention how long the lease has to be in order to qualify for that interest?
No. So
is there a particular time frame?
So your lease is typically 12 months most of the time. Okay. You then have leases for 24 months or 36 months and 6 months, right? That interest that you've earned over that period, whether it's 6 months, whether it's a year, whether it's 24 months, you are entitled to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what can a landlord deduct from a rental deposit?
A couple of things that the landlord can deduct. To Michelle's point, when you move into a property, you have to conduct an inspection. Yeah. We expect landlord and tenant to have that inspection report, entry inspection. When you exit, we expect another exit inspection carried out jointly, landlord and tenant. There's no inspection that must be carried out by either landlord or tenant without the other. And that's the proof we require when the matter comes before the tribunal, because we can deal with hearsay. I inspected, I found a broken window. The tenant says, but I left, there was no broken window, right? Yeah. What's the only proof we have? It's an inspection report. We look at the entry inspection. What is the state of the property when you received it, when I gave it to you as the landlord, right? And when you exited, what is the state, right?
But reacting to Tiny's issue in the insert, she said that when she moved in, she was with the landlord, they did the necessary inspections and found absolutely nothing wrong with it. And then when she moved out, she was told there's a broken window, hence she can't get the deposit back.
And that's why we insist. People always say we did a joint entry inspection. And then we say, give us the proof that you did contact, because it's required by law. The law requires that you do that. It's a statutory requirement. Have an joint entry inspection. So then there are no disputes when you exit, right? Tiny, when you entered, all my windows were working. You moved out, there it is. We inspected jointly. You could see that the window is broken. Then I'm going to deduct the cost of fixing the window. The balance of the deposit, I refund.
Okay.
Yeah.
Michelle, if the damage on the property far exceeds the deposit, what then happens then?
So we deal with a couple of different dispute cases from the credit bureau perspective. And where there's damage in excess of what's being held by the deposit, the landlord or the agent would follow through the process of trying to collect on that arrear amount. Initially by making demand for the amount by the tenant. And if that amount is not paid, then we go through the credit bureau process of waiting 3 months post the exit of the property, post a 20 business day letter of demand being sent to the tenant. And at that point, the landlord or agent is able to load that excess amount onto the bureau waiting for payment. It is very important then that once that amount has been settled, that information is removed from the credit bureau within a 7-day period. The tenant, of course, has the right to come and dispute that information with the bureau. So if the information is loaded on the credit bureau, the tenant has the right to come to the bureau and say, either I've settled the amount or I dispute that information. And we would then rely on the Rental Housing Tribunal in terms of making a finding as to the accuracy of that data.
So what's the reasonable time then for withholding a deposit?
For withholding a deposit from the tenant?
From the landlord?
No.
After vacating?
There's absolutely statutory requirement as to how that deposit is repaid. If there's no damage to the property, within 7 days of vacating, the deposit must be refunded. If there is damage to the property, then the landlord has 14 days after restoring the property to refund the tenant the balance of the deposit. And that must be a reasonable amount of time to make restoration. Obviously, if there's a lot of damage, it's going to take more time to restore the property than if it's simply a broken window.
All right, let's leave it there for now. Imagine nangabe uyangena nje eflatini uthola iflat ke irent yakhona ngu5,000 rand, but then you're told ukuthi deposit yakhona it's 2 months rent, then you have to pay 15,000 rand upfront. Sicocele ukuthi ucabangani ke ngaloko. What have you been through? To share your thoughts with us. Kwanyalo sasel Kefu, we'll be back shortly. Rental deposits. We're asking you the question, under what circumstances can a landlord withhold their tenant's deposit? Ngabe nawe uke wabanjelwa deposit yakho? Singathanda ukuva indzaba yakho. Our participation lines are now open. You can call us on 0117146918 noma ke 0117146919. Ungachumana nathi ke futhi usibhalela ke ku social media, u-email noma ke usithumelele i-SMS. Now, Advocate, before we went to that ad break, I quipped about, the imposition of the rental deposit. Some landlords charge 2 months rental deposit, 3 months rental deposit. Under what circumstances do they arrive at that decision?
It's really a negotiation. The normal process and what has been the practice is that it's a 1 month's rent equivalent of 1 month of deposit, right? So if your rent is 5,000 rand, the deposit also will be 5,000 rand, and that's how it has been. We've been doing it for a number of years, right? But where we find ourselves with the cost of living, right? And if you are a landlord and you have been in this business for quite some time, you then realize that you need to protect your interest and protect your property, right? Because most of the time, when those damages occur, you have not been able to cover them and be able to pay the damages because the deposit is not enough, right? So that's why most of the time the landlords will want to cover themselves and ask for a 2 months deposit plus the rent. So you're paying 3 months of rent in advance, right? But the deposit, the actual deposit that is going to be set aside and deposited into an interest-bearing account will be the 2 months of that rent. So it's really, at the end, your negotiation with your tenant, between the landlord or the tenant, to say, I prefer to receive 2 months of deposit. And you need to say, as a tenant, I'm willing to accept the terms. If not, you move on and look for another apartment that you can afford, that it requires maybe a 1 month rental deposit.
Okay, you talk of the landlord protecting their property, in terms of charging the deposit. So in that vein, can they increase the deposit in the spirit of
the deposit only increases in line with the rent. So if the rent is 5,000 when you moved in, and a year later it increases by 10% or 20%, the deposit must move at the same rate. So it will increase the deposit because it always should be equivalent of the rent. most of the time.
All right.
Yeah.
So, Mark, is the lease agreement, is it subject to, debate? Or is it subject to negotiation?
Well, at the outset, ideally the lease agreement should be negotiated and agreed between the parties. Remember, the most valuable thing a person has is their signature. That signature represents their acceptance of what's in that agreement. Mm-hmm. And it's very important that people understand that once they affix their signature to a document, they've accepted those terms. So once a tenant and a landlord finalise the documents and they sign, they are then bound by the terms. It's very difficult then later to turn around and say, but I'm not happy with this clause or I'm not happy with that clause. So the opportunity for finalising these details is before that signature takes place, and this is when the two parties ideally should be getting to a point where they agree to what the terms are and what the situation is. If either party isn't happy with what's in that agreement, then they either need to vary that agreement or not enter it at all.
Right. Michelle, do you want to weigh in on that?
Certainly. I mean, from our perspective, we've got a standard lease agreement that's used quite extensively around the country by about 3,000 property practitioners. And we found that standardization is really, really important, because then a tenant knows what they're engaging with, and to ensure that the lease agreements are in line with what the Rental Housing Act and statutory law requires us. It also means that when it comes to a dispute, that it's in line with what the Act says, and that the parties aren't contracting outside of what the law requires.
Okay.
For example, interest. Our lease agreement is very clear that the interest must be held in an interest-bearing account that accrues to the tenant in the event that the deposit is held by the landlord. But if the deposit is held by an estate agent, the Estate Agency Affairs Act governs how that deposit is held. And in actual fact, the deposit interest is paid to the Estate Agency Affairs Board. So it's very important that this is made absolutely clear within the lease agreement.
Okay, so if the lease agreement is coming to an end, and would I be correct by withholding the rental deposit for the last month on the basis that it'll be taken from the deposit?
Absolutely not.
No.
Really?
No.
Why not?
You need to pay your rent. Rent is separate from the deposit.
But you can take your own deposit. It's all yours now.
So that's one of the cases that we have had now, at the Rental Housing Tribunal, right? Where tenants will say, I'm moving out end of the month, end of May. I don't have to pay my rent. You can take it from the deposit.
Yeah.
But the deposit is supposed to be treated differently. It's on exit. It's meant to cover the damages. We only tamper with the deposit once you exit the property. Okay. So the rent for the month of May must still be paid, right?
Okay.
Then, when you exit, we conduct the inspection. Once we've concluded the inspection and you have not damaged the property, you then get refunded. So we shouldn't confuse the two at all. Right? Because tenants get tempted to want to use the deposit because they don't want to take out the money the last month because they think they have the deposit, forgetting that this deposit is supposed to be treated for the damages themselves, right? So stay away from the deposit until you move out and get it when you move out.
I've always wondered, and thanks for clearing that up.
Yeah.
Now, who determines the value of the sundries, like the painting, the cleaning, the broken windows?
Yeah.
Because some unscrupulous landlords may be like, okay, the cost of cleaning is like 5,000 rand, which is equivalent to the deposit.
Yeah.
Who then determines the value of those services?
So for the work that we do at the tribunal, we've been able to test that, right? Because, landlords come with a shopping list of how much it costs them to paint their premises, right? How much it costs them to clean the carpets, for instance. And what happens, and that's why we insist on exit, what was the understanding between the parties, right? As I moved out and I realized that the carpets are not cleaned, and we agree, myself and you as the landlord, that in order to clean your carpets properly, we agreed that you must find a third party to clean the carpets, right?
Okay.
You are required to give me the invoices or even the quotations, so that because that's my deposit at the end of the day, right?
Okay.
I then have to agree and consent to you utilizing the services of a third party to clean your carpet at 3,000 rands, for instance.
So basically you're telling me that it is an absolute must that the landlord should get a third party, not the landlord doing the services on his or her own.
So you're expected when you leave my property to clean it. So the law says, give it back to me in the state that you received it.
When I moved in, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So what was the state? I gave you a clean property, right?
Okay.
When you move out, give me the same, right?
Okay.
And if you haven't, and we walk around the property and we agree that, in fact, I'm not giving you what you gave me. It needs a third party to clean it because I'm not a cleaner, all right? I need a company to clean it. Let's agree on the cost of that cleaning and get deducted from the deposit.
Okay, Mark?
A very good technique, in addition to what Brenda's saying, is for let's say the parties.
Okay, Mark, please hold a thought. Okay. We need to take this break now. We'll definitely continue on that point. Senti vele ke mbukeli qhubeka uyibhadale ke leyo rent yakho noma ngabe inyanga igcina noma ngabe uyaphuma kusasa qhubeka uyibhadale ungatsheli ukuthi cha ilandlord itayitapuna kule deposit akuhambi kanjalo. Asiphinze ke sithatha likhetfu. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back, Bugeli. Our lines are now open, 0117146918 or 0117146919. These are participation lines. They are on your screens right now. Make sure that to grab that phone and call us. You can also find us on our social media platforms. You can also reach us via email or even SMS. Let's take our first call now. Sinabongi ulapha ke Midrand. Sakumole lihlelo sawubona.
Yebo ninjani?
Siyaphila kunjani mama?
Ngiyaphila. Ligama ngibonge ngifuna Midrand. I once had an issue with an agent whereby when I moved in, I found the carpets in the bedroom. They were dirty, but not in a state whereby I couldn't leave. So it was a livable dirt. So now I accepted that, considering that I was in a hurry to move in, but also it was noted by the person who was assisting me from the agent side. But now when I moved out, to find that the people that were moving in, they could not tolerate that kind of debt. You understand?
Okay.
So now the agency put it on me. Up to this day, I'm still paying for that. How do I resolve that? Because it was done during the inspection. However, it was not noted down. So there's no concrete proof that I did say I can live with this, and I found it there when I moved in.
Okay, Sis Bongi, that's an absolute nightmare that I've been through myself. Thank you so much for calling us. So how would you respond to that? I'm going to start with you, Michelle.
Well, I think the most important thing is the quality of the inspection that's done. So obviously it's a joint inspection where the agent on behalf of the landlord and the tenants come in and inspect the property. And it's very important that each and every instance of defect or damage is properly noted, and even better if there are photos that go with that damage to prove the level of damage of that particular property. Because as the advocate rightly pointed out, it's very difficult if you don't have the proof. It's a he says, she says as to the level of damage of that of those carpets at that point in time.
Okay, Mark, yeah. Michelle talks about taking photos, but in that particular instance where Bongi had vacated the premises and then only to find that the next tenant was like, no, I cannot tolerate the kind of dirt that is on the carpets. What should happen there?
So just to go back with what Michelle was saying, so when a person moves in, what happens in that initial inspection is you compile what's called a snag list, right? So in other words, if you come in and you see that the door handle's off its place, of where it should be, or there's a problem or something like that, it's noted in the snag list. Then what happens is the parties agree to the snag list, and they obviously, like Michelle and the advocate are saying, take pictures, record it so that it's noted. It doesn't necessarily end there, because theoretically, when you move into an apartment or whatever you're moving into that you're renting, it should be in a decent condition, right? So in terms of the snag list, you say, these are the problems, and the landlord is then required to fix that over the course of the lease. So if she moves into the property, when Bongi moved into the property and she saw that it was a mess, she can turn around and say, look, we note this, noted in the inspection, noted on the snag list, then turn around and say to the landlord, look, this needs to be fixed. This was noted in the inspection. This now needs to be rectified and needs to be repaired at the early stages of the lease, because from that snag list. Then that should be rectified. Once it's been rectified over the course of the lease, essentially normal wear and tear of the property is the tenant's responsibility.
Okay.
Right?
Advocate, your thoughts?
Sorry, Mark. You know, most of the time, tenants rely on snag list. They do not carry out their entry inspection because they believe that snag list is enough. That's not enough. You do both the snag list, but we require that entry inspection.
You see.
Right? It's important, right? And it's detailed, the inspection. It's literally a list. You have a list for the kitchen, walls, plugs, everything. Stove, you check everything. Yeah. You tick on entry that the stove is in working order. You test it,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Because you can't
in the presence of the landlord.
In the presence of the landlord or their representative agent,
okay.
Right? You do that. Bedroom 1, bedroom 2, lounge, dining room, study, everything. The plugs are working, the walls are, the ceiling is everything.
Yeah.
So that when you move out, you do the same exercise. Same exercise. Most of the time, people don't do that. We've got cases where entry inspection was done, but not exit. We've got cases where entry was not done, but exit was not done. We've got cases where entry was done, and there's no snag list, or there's a snag list replacing the entry inspection. So all those who are in the rental market, insist, if you're a tenant, insist on an inspection being carried out, and it must be a joint inspection.
And it's very important that both parties should sign the checklist or the snag list and have copies of it. All right, let's take our second caller. Sina Valencia ulapha eThembisa. Sakungwele hlelo sawubona Valencia. Valencia from Tembisa. Siyakungwele hlelo sawubona. Are you there?
Hi, I'm getting you.
Great. What's on your mind? Welcome to the show.
Yes, I have a similar issue as the previous caller. I'm a landlord.
Okay.
And I did an inspection with the tenant. The problem was, though, that we did not record or have a snag, like you mentioned. So we just did a casual visual inspection, you know, and I took, you know, a couple of photos, and that was it. So when it came to the tenant moving out, we had a problem because he left the place in a state. I took photos of the place looking a mess and videos as well. So when I told him that he needed to paint and needed in a good condition as he found it, he told me that he left it, you know, spotless and stuff. So I withheld his deposit. And then he took me to the rental tribunal. And we had a case. We were called in for the hearing, where I was actually told by the tribunal that I don't have a case because we did not do a formal inspection where everything was recorded and written down and things like that. Even though I had photos of how the tenant left the premises or the house, the photos were not even considered. They were not even looked at. Therefore, the tenant full deposit was due to him. Okay. So in that instance, I wonder what is my case.
All right. Fortunately, we have the advocate from the rental tribunal who will be giving your responses after the break. But for now, let's take another short commercial break. Don't you go away. You want to listen to this. Asikomukele futhi mbukeli Yilungelo Lakho is your right. Ingabe uke wabanjelwa yini i-deposit? Singathanza ukuva indzaba yakho. Our participation lines are still open. There will be, there we go. They are on your screens right now. Now, advocate, before we had to that ad break, we had Valencia from Tembisa who talked about like she had a very casual relationship with her tenant, but then things went down south. They went very sour after the premise vacated.
Casual will cost you, right?
Yeah.
and she said she came to the tribunal. We've had cases where tenant landlords tell us the same. I've taken pictures. So we ask the simple question. Do the pictures show the date? Because you see, the other party is going to dispute it. And that's the challenge. Because people don't appreciate that we dealing with proof. The burden of proof, if you allege something, the burden of proof lies with you, right? Mm-hmm. So you decided not to do an entry inspection. You took pictures. You have a tenant who comes back and says, those pictures, they don't give a true reflection of the property. And I don't know whether those pictures, when were they taken, right? And that's fair, because there has to be a record. I should have been there when you were taking pictures, because I need to confirm what you're saying is the truth, right? Mm-hmm. We have had cases where we have had good tenants who did not, there was no entry inspection, there was no exit, but accepted the damages, because they is the bona fide in saying, yes, I did damage the property, right? Most cases don't find tenants who are willing to accept that they have damaged the property. Yeah. On the flip side of that, you have had landlords hoping to use the deposit to fix their properties, right? Okay. Yeah.
My understanding is that Valencia took the pictures together with the tenant, but then when she took up the matter with the tribunal, those pictures were not
because
accepted.
We need to satisfy ourselves, right, as the tribunal, that what was the state of your property when she moved in, right? Because you had that tenant, I can promise you now, that tenant said back and said, I did not. Mm. I can bet it. Said, I do not know where those pictures are coming from. I was never there. That's why when that exit report or entry is done, those signatures are important. We have get cases where individuals say, it's not my signature.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mark, do you want to weigh in on this?
I think what the learned advocate's saying is very accurate. That at the end of the day, that's why we're stressing as a panel that it's so important to have the entry and the exit inspection, because that entry inspection clarifies what was the status of the premises when the tenant moved in. Everyone's agreeing that this is what it was. Therefore, later, when the exit inspection takes place, there's agreement as to what has changed over the course of time. Mm-hmm. That we can clearly see that everyone is agreeing. If there's a dispute at the end of it, when you come for the exit inspection to say, no, hang on, that cupboard was always off the rails, it was never working. Exactly. You know, you can turn around, you can say, well, let's look at the entry inspection. Well, on the entry inspection, I remember when you came in, this cupboard worked perfectly. Now, cupboard's broken, it's fallen off the rails. Tenant's responsible. That way, when you come to the rental housing tribunal, you can turn around, you can say, here's my entry inspection. Here's the exit inspection. We both signed it. Cupboard's broken. I'm entitled to deduct the value of repairing the cupboard. Yeah. And then what often happens, I'm sure, like Brenda said, is that no, but to fix a cupboard, it doesn't cost that much. Yeah. So what the best thing to do then is for the landlord to say, look, I've gone to 3 different carpenters. They've given me 3 different invoices to say this is how much it's going to cost to fix the cupboard. One says 1,000, one says 2,000, one says 1,500. So we'll go with the one in the middle, 1,500. That's how much it costs. Yeah. 1,500 is entitled to be deducted from the deposit. Balance needs to be paid over to the tenant. All right, Michelle, your thoughts? I'm sure it's very important that we overemphasize the importance of having a legal document as a lease agreement.
A legal document as a lease agreement, and also the fabulous inspection software that both tenant and landlord can use as well, which during the process of taking the inspection and signing off on the inspection allows the photos to be taken to supplement what is on this inspection document. So we're noting that the cupboard is off the rails, we take a picture of it, it's time-stamped within the software as well.
True. Let's take another caller. We've got an anonymous caller from Midrand. Sagumore Helen Sawubona.
Kunjani baba?
Siphilile kunjani baba?
I'm okay.
Siyabonga.
All right. I have actually I'm looking for advice. Yeah. I was sitting with a landlord for at least the past 4 years, and then he kicked me out in the middle of the month of the 4th year. So what happened is I won't go into further details for the sake of time, but when he told me that I need to leave or vacate, it was around the middle of the month, let's say the 15th, and then I need to leave by end of the month.
Did you have a lease agreement?
No. A lease agreement came on the probably second, if not third year of me staying there.
Okay. So when he told you to vacate the premises, you had signed that lease agreement at that point?
At that point, yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, okay, when I first came in, we agreed that I'll pay a deposit, and then when I go out, then I'll get that deposit. That we agreed. Okay. So when I left, everything was fine. Obviously, people, when they stay in a house, like walls will be painted and so on and so on. But we made that inspection together, and then he was happy. So I left one key, I think, and then I was to come back the following day with the keys. Then when I came back, no. When I left, then telling him about the deposit, he said, no, give me all the keys, then we'll get your deposit. Then I said that a key is just a key. I'll just go and redo the key, bring it back. Just give me a deposit because I already left your place.
Okay. Anonymous, please stay on the line because Mark has got a question to ask you.
Okay.
And I'll respond to what he has said.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anonymous, just a question. When you say your landlord asked you to leave, did he have a valid eviction order, or what happened? Did he just turn around to you and say, look, Anonymous, it's time for you to leave, go, and then you just said thank you and left? Or what happened around that?
He wrote a letter.
So he gave a notice to vacate.
Yes.
Yeah? All right. But the notice to vacate, and I think also is important, notice to vacate cannot be from the 15th of the month to the 15th of the month. It's a 1-month calendar notice. To the 1st of the month to the end of the month, right?
Yes, 30 days.
Yeah, 30-day calendar
case,
notice.
I had 15,
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
15 days.
that notice of yours was defective, Anonymous. Right?
Okay.
Yeah, it was defective. But second is that when I hand over the property to you and I give you 5 sets of keys, you return 5 sets of keys. That's it, right?
Okay.
And if you don't return the 5 sets of keys, then I'm going to deduct from the deposit the ones that are missing.
All right. Anonymous, thank you so much. I'm going to let you go, but please stay tuned to the show as more details will come out of it. So what's the kind of recourse that Anonymous has? What should he do?
Listen, I mean, it's moot now. I mean, he has moved out. There's not much he can do, right? Because if he had come to the tribunal when he received the notice, we would have then ordered the landlord to issue a proper notice. But he has moved out already, so it's academic, the discussion. One of the things is that he did not return, my sense, what I get from him is that he did not return all the set of keys that were given to him when he moved in, right? Okay. And if the landlord deducted the cost of the keys, then he was well within her right, the landlady to deduct that deposit and pay him the balance. Yeah.
All right. Mark and Michelle, we'll get your thoughts after the break. Khumbula ke mbukele ukuthi kumcoka ukuthi kube ne-document lotayisayina between wena nalandlord wakho niphindze niyisayine nibe nama-copies nobabili ungadijele nje ukuthi hayi no landlord ke umnakethu noma ke mfowethu besiphila naye kuphi kuphi akusebenzi kanjalo nyalo ke sithatha isikhathi lekugcina siyabuya khona nyalo. Sawubona futhi mbukeli leli ke Yilungelo Lakho, it's your right. Asesicucumbele ke indzaba yethu namhla we in the dying minutes of the show, and just in closing, Advocate, there's issues of the damage to the property and the wear and tear. Where do we draw the line? What's the difference?
So let's all understand wear and tear. So if I move into a property, I find it, and we agreed that this is what it is. I find it working, and when I move out, let's say 3 years down the line, right? The carpets are no longer the same, right? After 3 years, right? We factor in wear and tear because we have been moving in that carpet over a period of time, right? So when you want to claim damages, we need to factor wear and tear to say to the landlord, but these kinds of things, there's wear and tear that you need to factor because they've been used over a period of time, over time, right? Okay. And that's what you need to consider. That's the first thing, right? Okay. And landlords struggle with that most of the time because they don't look at wear and tear most of they think that it's damages, even though it's wear and tear, right? So every time we adjudicate in these cases, we factor in wear and tear, right? There are things that are quite clear that get damaged, and wear and tear does not come into it completely. When you have broken a door handle, that's not wear and tear. It's broken. The handle was there. Okay. It was working. You so broke it. Damaged. It's damaged, right? Okay. Right. It's and if you, as a landlord, you're able to say this handle was actually bought last year, and when you moved in, you just broke it when you left. I can demonstrate, right? Okay. But if I have a door handle that has been there for the last 15 years, okay, right, and it gets broken, you also factor in wear and tear because at some point that...
Please hold the thought, Advocate. We've got the very last caller. We've got another anonymous caller from Hillbrow. Very good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Great. How are you? What's on your mind? Welcome.
No, I'm all right, Trevor. I'm all right.
Good.
Just want to say these things. We are being exploited by the landlord.
Okay.
And I'm talking today so that the government can intervene of this. The deposit, it doesn't come back. Honestly speaking, it doesn't come back.
Have you experienced that? Have you experienced that kind of thing when that you never received back your deposit?
Believe me or not, last year, September, I rented a shop in Hebrew, in Central Johannesburg.
Okay.
I paid 29,000 something plus rent, so it came to 45,000 rand.
And you never got it back?
Believe me or not, I never got not even a cent.
All right.
And they wanted to put me on ITC.
All right. Fortunately, we have an officer from the Rental Tribunal. Thank you so much for your time. You can also lodge your complaint with the Rental Tribunal. And Advocate, how do you deal with that?
No, they must come to the tribunal. Come to the 4th floor and lodge the dispute with your landlord.
Please give us those details.
We are on 129 Fox Street in town, Johannesburg, on the 4th floor, Ikusasa House.
All right.
Yeah.
Mark, your closing comments?
I think it's important, that's what's come out from this from the discussion, is that parties need to be cognizant of their rights. They need to make sure that they read and that they're careful with the agreement before they sign it, that both parties are happy with the lease before they sign it. They conduct a proper entry inspection when the tenant moves into the premises, that both parties sign what the statuses of the premises, and that when the tenant comes time to leave, that they do a proper exit inspection, and that, again, both parties sign for their findings.
All right. The details are on your screens right now. Should you be aggrieved, if you're a tenant or a landlord, just go to the Rental Tribunal. The details are on your screens right now. Michelle, your closing comments.
Often, information that's recorded on the Credit Bureau reflects the dispute between tenants and landlord, often in terms of withholding rent for the last month's deposit, in terms of paying the deposit off. And we encourage all tenants to get access to their free credit report through TPN Credit Bureau and log a dispute if they find that the information is reflected inaccurately on the Bureau.
How do we get in touch with the TPN Credit Bureau?
So TPN, the easiest way is helpdesk@tpn.co.za.
All right. All right, Advocate Brenda, Mark, Michelle, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. It's been a very thought-provoking discussion we've had today. We appreciate your time. Sifika kanjalo-ke maphethelweni ehlelo lethu namhla. Sasemba ukuthi-ke sowuyathi ukuthi kumele wende njani uma ubhekene ne-rental dispute. Many thanks to our guests for sharing such valuable information. Asibonga ukuthi nawe umbukele ngekuba nathi kuze kube nyalo. Uma ngeke ngabe ufuna ukuthi khumbuta-ke ngalolu hlelo-ke lwathi namhla, inhlelo tethu-ke tiyaphindwa njalo ngalesine nga-11 ebusuku. Otherwise, Yilungelo Lakho will return again next week, Monday at 12 p.m. right here on SABC 1. From me, Simpio Ngwane, and the rest of the team, have a blessed week. Cheers.
Yilungelo